Welcome back to the Fox's Den. Boys and girls, are you ready for another bedtime story? I hope so, because this is Bedtime Bookies and Milk, and tonight we have a story called Little Red Riding Hood and Lucille, and it was written by someone very special to us, Grandma Bridget. So, in the first episode, I read to you a story from the Bedtime collection, and that is what I grew up on and how I learned to read. My mother taught me to read. This book is about reading as well. Grandma Bridget taught reading. She's a retired teacher, and she has this whole reading program, and pieces of it are in here. And if anyone out there is interested in it, I will link her website and put a description of it in the description below. So you can actually even purchase the book that way if you're interested in it. It is really cute. It's like a take on Little Red Riding Hood, and it's funny. It's filled with humor. And I remember I promised last time only had black and white pictures. This has gorgeous pictures in it. Okay, so this story, like I said, goes along with the red letter set. So let's begin. Once upon a time, there was a little girl who lived in a nice little house in a nice little town on the edge of a huge forest. She always wore a red cape with matching hood when she rode her bike or went out for a walk. So her mother playfully began calling her Little Red Riding Hood. Her grandmother gave her the nickname Little Red, and the little girl liked it. One day, Mother asked Little Red to take a basket of candles to Grandmother's house. Grandmother lived in the big forest, and she needed the candles to light her house. Little Red was happy to take the candles, but she was really excited about showing Grandmother her new glasses. Little Red knew she looked pretty in her new glasses. Everyone said so. So the pictures, like I promised, are gorgeous. So I'm going to just zero in so you can take a look. See what Lucille looks like in her fancy glasses and her pretty black hair and her ponytails, her beautiful red cape. Okay, cute. As Little Red set out for Grandmother's house, she was thinking that visits to Grandmother's were always fun. Grandmother was always doing interesting things, yet she always had time to be good and kind to all, even forest animals. This made Little Red smile. She made the first turn that would get her to the forest. This wide road was called King's Way, and she knew from school that this road got its name long ago when the king came here on his way to the sea. Just then, Little Red looked up and smiled. There it was, King's Way. She pointed to the sign and was thinking of the red letters and the sound she knew from school. Ing with a ring and A with the big or the capital letter A. King's Way, she yelled, and she was so proud of herself she began to giggle. I did it, she said. Look, isn't that cute? Swinging the basket of candles and walking along, Little Red turned left at the park. The park was called the Royal Green because on this very spot the king had stopped to greet the people of the town who came out to see him on that day so many years ago. And there it was. I can read this, she said. Again, Little Red stopped, pointed to the sign, and thought, oi, aw, E. Then she jumped and yelled, Royal Green! And she giggled aloud. This is so much fun. One last turn got Little Red to the sign for Kirk's Pool. Grandmother's house was just past the pool where animals would gather to drink cool water. And there it is, Little Red said, I can do this. And ooh. Kirk's Pool, she yelled as she began to laugh. Two birds were sitting in a tall tree, and Little Red yelled up to them, I am so good at this. This is so much fun. The birds didn't seem to care, and Little Red continued to laugh, and then she began skipping down the road, thinking that this was a wonderful day. See? Look at the little red letters. Very proud of herself. I remember feeling that way when I could read. Little Red knew she had to get the candles to Grandmother's, but there were so many things to see when she got to Kirk's pool. There were flowers to pick, there were beetles and frogs and butterflies to chase, and even a fawn in the distance. This road was so much fun, and by the time Little Red reached the end of the road where the thick, tall trees hit the sun, she knew she had to hurry because it was getting late. She began to run, and all at once, she tripped over a root. The flowers flew, the candles fell, and her glasses dropped. Oh boy. She looked and looked for her glasses and the candles, but it was getting dark under the trees. So with 2 candles left in her basket, Little Red began running to Grandmother's house. And you could see the sun starting to set and it's starting to get dark. Uh-oh. Candles. They're expensive, but glasses are very expensive. Let's see what happens. At the same time, on the other side of the forest, Mr. Burns, a farmer, was running after a wolf. He thought the wolf had been bothering his chickens. Mr. Burns had a broom in his hand. The wolf was so frightened, she too ran toward Grandmother's house. So while Little Red ran in the front door, the wolf ran through the clothesline, ran through Grandmother's nightgown and cap, and into the back door. They were both breathing hard and they stared at each other, and the room was dark, and Little Red had lost her glasses. They were both a mess. Could anything else go wrong? You could see her sweating, and the wolf looks like, where am I? Can't see because it's so dark. Uh-oh. Grandmother, Little Red cried out, I'm so sorry I'm late. I had the basket of candles Mother said you needed, but I tripped in the forest and I only have 2 left. Squinting, Little Red could see the fringe of Grandmother's clothes along the doorway. She said, it's so dark in here, Grandmother. I cannot see you clearly. Let me light the candles I have. You look very tired, Grandmother. With your head down like that, why don't you sit here while I get some light? So Little Red lit the 2 candles. Now this is better, she said with a smile, and she kept 1 candle for herself and placed 1 on the table without really turning around. You just rest, Grandmother, and I'll make us some tea. And as Little Red made the tea, she was smiling. Grandmother, you haven't asked, but I have good news. I am doing wonderfully in reading in school. I read all the signs on my way here. It's such fun with the red letters, she said with a giggle. With that, she turned to Grandmother. The room was still dark and it was hard to see. She put her hand out and with her fingers on the edge of Grandmother's cap, she said, Grandmother, what long hair you have. Then she turned, picked up Grandmother's teacup and placed it on the table and said, Grandmother, what long nails you have. And with a frown on her face, Little Red said, Grandmother, you are not saying much today. Uh-oh. Look at Red's big eyes. She's like... While Little Red was thinking about this, 3 things happened at once. She put her hands into her apron, and there were her glasses. My glasses, she cried. Then the room was full of light as Grandmother rushed in the front door with a lantern, and Mr. Burns, the farmer, rushed in the back door with a broom, and they all froze. Grandmother looked at each and was the first to speak. Little Red, Mr. Burns. Then Grandmother turned to the wolf and said, Lucille, Lucille, dear, why are you wearing my nightgown? Big mix-up. Well, it all turned out fine. When all was said and done, Mr. Burns did understand that Lucille was Grandmother's friend. She had found her as a pup in the forest just last year. Lucille lived nearby and often came for dinner. Grandmother told Mr. Burns that Lucille would never hurt his chickens. She liked chickens. When Mr. Burns went home, the 3 of them sat together. Grandmother said she had been out picking up a gift of strawberry jam from a neighbor. Little Red then told Grandmother about the glasses and candles. Grandmother said there was nothing to worry about. She did like the new glasses, and she was happy to hear about the fun way Little Red was reading with the red letters. Look at all the cute little chicks. The whole thing is so adorable. And best of yet, Little Red's learning to read. Little Red said to Grandmother, I feel silly because I thought that in the dark room, Lucille was you. Little Red had met Lucille many times. She too was her friend. Grandmother said they were all safe and that was all that mattered. It was time for tea, hot buns and jam. Grandmother turned to Lucille. Lucille had been so frightened. With a smile, Grandmother said, Lucille, dear, that cat looks very nice on you. Lucille seemed to like it. With a happy face, Little Red said, Grandmother, you were so good and kind, and you were so much fun. So at the end of a day full of surprises, they all began to laugh, even Lucille. The end. And then in the back it says, if you like the book, there's more information where you can actually order the book and the red letter set that goes with it, and you could be just like Lucille. And it's all about visual learning. So this is a really cool story with another story behind it, which is, again, the power of reading and how much fun it is. Okay, boys and girls, you enjoy your night, and I will see you next Sunday at 7. Thank you, Grandma Bridget, for sharing your book with us. We love the red letter set, too, because Abby Rose and Lexi have been learning how to read with it. And we love the story of Little Red Riding Hood and Lucille. Lucille's cute, don't you think?